Okay. Hi, everybody. We're going to get started here. Thank you all for joining us by Zoom or here in person behind me. We'll see you in a moment. We've got Jennifer Herman, who is the director for the Center of Teaching and Excellence at Simmons University. And she's going to talk us through some ideas, thoughts on using Zoom, but also teaching synchronously and asynchronously as we're considering our remote options. And then we will talk more. If you guys have questions, you can set up the one-on-ones with us, as well as come to our 2 o'clock meeting this afternoon. So let me know, but I'm gonna turn it over now to Jennifer and go from there. So Jennifer, if you wanna pop in, you should be unmuted and should be good to go.
All right, thank you so much. So good afternoon, everybody. It's so nice to see folks at Hiram. I know some folks in the room, but not everybody. So just a quick background of who I am. So first, I'm an alum. So I graduated in '02. And since graduating from Hiram, I ended up in the field of higher education. I direct a teaching center. My doctoral research, ironically, was on how to prepare faculty to teach online. So my advisor thought it would be a little relevant, and I guess it is. Brittany, so you know, I just muted myself because I'm getting feedback. So someone might need to wave if they want to talk to me. And can everyone hear me okay? A thumbs up? Or a few folks? Okay, great. So I've done a lot of my research in the area of online education, and I'm also supporting Simmons University's efforts to prepare faculty to move online. So we actually just made the call at our institution less than an hour ago. So it's very fresh and raw for a lot of folks, but not unexpected. So the deans had a good heads up that this was probably coming, and so there's a lot of preparation already underway. So that's kind of where we are. We are implementing a plan we had put in place that involves 4 folks with expertise in online education working with our 4 different colleges and doing one-on-one support with faculty. So we're in the same boat, and I'm happy to be able to talk with all of you today. So I think part of this will be just sharing some high-level guidance and lessons learned, both from the research and from my experience with doing all of this. And then lots of time for Q&A. I think we can learn a lot by sharing our experiences with each other and any questions folks have, so we can direct this in the way that would be most useful. I should also mention that I've been supporting faculty with online education for about 15 years. And this is a very different situation than what I usually do, because this is all about academic continuity rather than making it perfect. And lots of folks who have never taught online for the first time, and you don't have to become experts in a few days. So I think those are some good overall pieces. So first, just some general guidelines if you've never taught online before. So just from the folks in the room, a quick show of hands, who is brand new to online teaching? That's good. A few folks. So we have a mix. So what I find from both the research and from experience is usually once you get your feet wet a little bit with it, it's not as daunting or overwhelming. So there have been some large-scale studies done that survey faculty about what they think about this whole thing. And usually before you get started, people are like really resistant. And rightfully so. There's real concerns with online versus in person. But then once you get into it, like, it's really not as bad, because you can still have a lot of engagement with students, and you can still continue to foster good relationships with students. And so just recognizing that there are still opportunities to have that close one-on-one interaction with students. The other big guidelines is if you're new to all this, it's really important to just keep it simple. I find a lot of colleagues I've spoken with that are trying to dive into this, go on Google or go on an email sent by the professional organization. And there's often so many lists of, here's all the tools, here's all the things, here's all the stuff you should be looking at. And it's really easy to get mired and dragged down by that. And so one of my overall pieces of advice is just to try and keep it really simple and straightforward, and try your best to continue the kind of teaching style that you've been doing. The next thing I wanted to talk about was synchronous versus asynchronous. So you may have already had some of these conversations on your campus, but I think that's one of the big questions to ask initially is, do you want to try and do live online classes or something where students go on their own time to get some work completed? And of course, live sessions have great benefits. You can have actual discussions with people, which is really great. You can do a live lecture. You can do small group breakout sessions and a lot of active learning through a live session. But the downside is, of course, not all students have the technology they need to connect in that way. And I'm sure there's been some conversation about that. You know, some students might not have high-speed internet at home. Some students might be using a cell phone instead of a computer, but there's other things that have popped up. So things like there might be multiple family members trying to access internet video at the same time, and what would be fine for one person, when you have a whole household that are trying to do that all day, it might not work well. Another piece is sometimes families only have one computer at home. And again, if you have multiple people that might be staying home from work or school, they have to share the time. And if a parent's working from home, that might take priority. So lots of things to think about. And what I often find is faculty will do a survey of their students. So something anonymous, so you don't have to out a student for not having a resource. But it's a good way to just gauge what's feasible, because you certainly don't want to try and do a live Zoom session if some of those major problems are going to creep up, because then it's an equity and an access issue. Asynchronous, you know, there's certainly some benefits to that as well. I actually teach online classes right now and find asynchronous discussions, if they're framed well, are really a lot more thoughtful and engaging than some of the discussions we've had in class, because students have to think before they write and have time to be thoughtful and engage with others in a very deliberate way rather than off the cuff. But of course, there's downsides to asynchronous. It's not as engaging. You can't do as much with it. And it can be more difficult for students who just have trouble organizing their life. And so we find that that can be more of a challenge with asynchronous. Another piece I wanted to mention is it's just really helpful to think about students during this transition. So what we've seen pop up at some campuses in the New England area is students that have something else going on. It tends to be exacerbated by this change. So accommodations become a piece, students with mental health diagnoses that can be exacerbated, students that have a learning disability or executive functioning, processing challenges, all of those things. And so really keeping that high touch connection with students and doing the best you can to be flexible and work with them as full humans dealing with a very unprecedented and strange circumstance. So those were the main things I wanted to start with. And so since this is primarily a Q&A session, I wanted to open it for Q&A and see if we can get some conversation going. So Brittany, I hope you can help facilitate the Q&A part here.
Hey guys, sorry, I was at the other side of the room. So I'm going to, you guys are all currently muted on this call just because they're to minimize background noises while we were listening to the initial piece. So if you would like to unmute, and if you look on your screen, it should be in the top right-hand corner. There should be a little microphone that says mute, and it should have like a red line, or unmute on it. It should have a red line through it. If you guys want to go ahead and use that to unmute and ask your questions. I will also be monitoring the chat and bring those over here in a moment. So I'm going to open it up, and there's people here in the room as well. So we will go from there. So let me open the chat option here. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Really creepy.
Brittany, you might want to mute your. Yeah, we have multiple things happening.
Sorry, guys. Okay.
Do I need to mute mine or?
No, you're good.
Oh no, Elena, you're good. I'm going to mute mine so you can speak a little more clearly.
Good. Okay, I was just wondering about like the breakout rooms versus the asynchronous group chats. Would maybe the discussion forum on Moodle then be better versus the breakout rooms on Zoom? If that makes sense.
Like whether to have people talk in small groups real time or have it be something that's on Moodle?
Yeah.
So in the classes that I teach normally, I do the asynchronous discussion board on Moodle. My advice, if you want to go that direction, first, it's really a great choice if you want to avoid any of the messiness with technology, connectivity, and those types of things. It's also helpful for students who want some time to process.
I've done it on Blackboard. Is it similar than with Moodle? I've just never tried it with Moodle, so.
So Blackboard and Moodle have similar functionalities. And so the idea is that you're just posting a question and then there's a space where students can respond to that.
So do you think it's easier than versus the breakout rooms, or?
It depends on what you're trying to do. I find that the asynchronous is better if you're trying to get students to connect with research and if you're trying to get them to go in more depth. You can build in things into your questions that ask them to do that, and so you can really dig deep. But if you're trying to do something where you want students to build off of each other's ideas or process personal experience, it actually might be better to do that live.
Okay.
So it's more what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
And also how comfortable you are with the groups in Zoom. It isn't terribly tricky, but if it's the first time you've done it, you don't necessarily want your students to be the guinea pigs, or you can just let them know they're the guinea pigs and have a backup plan.
Right. And can we, I can see what they're talking about in the groups, or no?
You can.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's what I just wondered.
And I should mention just in general, Zoom has really great how-to videos and articles. And so if you go on Zoom's vendor website, they have all that stuff there, and it's actually pretty well done. Not all vendors can do it well, but I think they did it well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we are putting that information out in the Moodle Resource Center on our side. So if you go to Moodle and you log